a moment where everything feels wrong, but you can't actually explain why? I mean, like, nothing specific is broken, nothing obvious is on fire. But something's happened and now you feel totally overwhelmed, stuck, maybe even a little panicked. And when you try to name the problem, your mind just blanks. If you have ADHD, this is a familiar place. And if you're single on top of that, it can feel worse because there's not a second brain around to help you sort it out. Hi, I'm Christine Dunning. I'm a Master Certified Life Coach, the owner of Two Cats Coaching, and the host of this, A Solo Person's Guide to ADHD. Welcome to episode 28, where everything feels wrong, but you can't explain why. Before we go any further, let me be very clear about what this episode is not. This is not about New Year's resolutions. It's not a reset. It's not going to be a how to be more productive faster. It's not about fixing your life, optimizing yourself, or finally getting everything right. Because here's the deal. Life has problems. That part is not optional. Some of these problems are harder because we have ADHD. And some are harder because we're single and don't have as much help. And of course, some things hit both of those. I'm not here to eliminate problems from your life. What I'd like to try to start today, and this is the first of 4 episodes, just so you know, I'm going to show you how to identify them faster and start maneuvering issues into lanes where you can actually work with them instead of them working against you. If that sounds less flashy than a reset, good. It's also supposed to be more useful. And before we go any further, a quick housekeeping note. If you're a regular listener, I have a few, you might be thinking, wait, didn't I already hear in episode 28? Yes, you did. This is the beginning of a program that I'm working on, and right after I recorded and uploaded episode 28, I had a big breakthrough and kind of changed my mind on some things. And honestly, it almost entirely affected the first episode. And so it wasn't aligned anymore. So I've pulled it. Welcome to having ADHD. The information wasn't bad. It's not aligned anymore with my program. And that's actually kind of the point of today's episode. So I'd like to start with a quick personal story. For those of you who don't know my background, my previous career was music education, elementary music to be specific, which means on an average day, I had at least 150 students come through my classroom. I usually had between 450 and 550 on my books. I tell you this because that many little kids, I got a lot of colds. A lot of colds. And for me personally, when I get a cold, my thinking stops. It's just gone. You know this. It's called brain fog. It's a pretty common symptom of ADHD. Now, understand, most of that time, I had no clue I had ADHD. I didn't discover that until after I retired. For me personally, a lot of my ADHD symptoms, they're pretty manageable, or I have learned to manage them over the years. But getting sick, not so much. Which means I wouldn't remember what I needed to do to treat a cold so that I could get better. When I start getting those symptoms, truly, I have no idea what to do. And as a single person, I didn't have anybody to sort of automatically step in and say, hey, sounds like you're coming down with the crud. You should take something. When that brain fog sets in, it's too late for me to try to remedy the situation. Oh, quick side note. I know I'm Two Cats Coaching. I only have one cat anymore, unfortunately, and she's being noisy today. So if you hear her meowing, now you know. Anyway, here's the core idea I want to anchor in today. Confusion doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. Let me say that again. Confusion is not the disease. It's a symptom. And it simply means that you haven't accessed what the problem is yet. When people with ADHD start to feel overwhelmed, our perspective collapses. Our brains are taking in too much information too fast without enough structure to sort it. Or, in the case of my cold, the symptoms of the cold overwhelm my system, and I can't function. Everything feels equally urgent, equally heavily, equally impossible, and, equally, I don't know. Sometimes this is called ADHD paralysis. Not because you're lazy, but it's a sign that your nervous system is overloaded. And part of our task today is noticing what your brain flags before that information disappears. Here's what often happens next. You assume the confusion means that you're failing, you're behind. You should already know what to do. How many colds have I had in my life and I can't remember what to do? That's just an example, of course. And so you try to pick the right goal immediately because, that's what feels good. Oh, I'll go to the doctor. But that almost always backfires because early thoughts, early goals for people with ADHD, it's not always the right one. It's just our brain guessing. It's sort of like playing pin the tail on the donkey, trying to stab that tail where it's supposed to be, and you have no idea. And this is where my new program comes in. So this program it has 5 phases, and I'm going to talk about those over 4 podcast episodes, by the way. The first one we're talking about today is access. The following ones I'm just going to run through quick are security, structure, anchoring, and pace. So let's talk about access. Access is actually not an action. It's not a motivation. It's not deciding what to fix. It's important to do these things in order. So stick with me. This is not a quick fix thing. Access is having the ability to get inside a problem safely. That'll be part 2. And starting to understand what's actually going on. Here's a great way to think of it. It's about getting curious. Think of this as an iterative diagnosis. This is for high frequency things. And this is not about solving it. You're not even naming it. You're just going to get closer. Try to look at things from an outsider point of view. And again, as single people, we don't have an outsider generally in our homes. We don't have a partner or a husband or a wife or whatever to sort of say to us, hey, I'm noticing this about you. So we need to take that role ourselves and notice those things about ourselves. Now, one of the biggest mistakes we often make in this time period is confusing symptoms with causes. Symptoms are things like procrastination, messiness, avoidance, emotional overload, starting and stopping, and brain fog. Those are just a few, trust me. Those are real things, but they're not the cause of the issue. The cause lives underneath. Cognitive load, nervous system access or stress, executive function limits, decision fatigue. It might be something completely different and unrelated to the ADHD. Like in this case, the example I'm giving you, you might just, have a cold. Trying to fix symptoms without access to the cause is exhausting. That's why so many systems don't stick. Think of it this way, and I'll give it a recent example. If you feel like you have a cold, but you have a brain aneurysm, that's a terrible example, but you get what I mean. Giving yourself a decongestant isn't going to make you feel better. You need to get to the hospital. Vice versa. If you think you have a brain aneurysm, but you just have a cold, going to a hospital is kind of a waste of time and money, and your doctor's time and money. When really, all you need to do is go get some decongestant and some cough medicine. And then again, if you're single, that's another layer of complication. Most of society is really built around partnered or group living. That's the way people lived for years. The concept of just living alone is, in a lot of ways, fairly new. And usually then you would have a second person or more helping notice patterns, catching slips, reflecting reality back to you. And if you live alone, you don't have that. So problems can grow quietly under the surface, and by the time you notice them, they start to feel enormous. Now, that's not a character flaw. It's a structural issue, which brings us back to access. Today is not about fixing anything. Today is about learning how to notice. It's about listening to the little voice in your head, and again, being curious, which, I have to do a little plug here, reminds me so much of one of my favorite moments in Ted Lasso, the being curious part. If you know, you know. Go watch that clip. It's actually quite good. I do want to say that your brain often gives you clues. Our brains will often give us a quick thought about something. For example, my brain might say something like, oh, this is probably the beginning of a cold. You're starting not to feel great. But that information can come and go so quickly that we don't always retain that information. My brain doesn't grab it before it's like, oh, and then I have to line the kids up to leave. So a lot of what we're going to talk about here is how to catch those things before they vanish from your brain. And here are 3 access questions that we're going to start with today. And again, a reminder, today we're not solving any problems today. This is all about noticing. So if you're wondering where this is applicable, ask these questions. First, what keeps breaking in my life? What pattern keeps showing up even after you've tried to fix it? Maybe you've tried to fix it different ways, and yet you still run the same pattern. This is like that definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's this. And again, not something that went wrong once, but what reliably comes apart over time, often. Second, what feels heavier than it should? What takes more energy than seems reasonable, even when it's simple? What's like, oh, I have to do this again. This shouldn't be that hard. What things drain us completely or create that tight sinking feeling? And third, what do you end up rebuilding every time from scratch? What do you keep reinventing because the last version never held? Where are you starting over again instead of continuing? And again, there's no answers here yet. This is not a productivity exercise. This is orientation. So here's your takeaway for today. If everything feels wrong, but you can't explain why, that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're at that access point. And for today, all I want you to do is to start taking notice of them. And I'm going to tell you something here. Little ones. Big ones are great. Oh, I keep losing my money on the stock market. That's a lot. Little things. Oh, I forgot to brush my teeth again. Little things. This works especially well with little things that build into bigger things. We'll talk more about that in the future too. So again, take notice of these little things, write them down if you need to so you don't forget. Notes app on your phone. That's one of my favorite places. Post-it notes are great for things like this. Next time, we'll talk about security and how to make this work feel safe enough that you can grab those things before you shut down or burn out, because that's such a big part of our issue here. Because pushing harder isn't the answer. learning how to approach problems differently is. And this is where we start. Oh, and you want to know how I fixed my brain fog rhinovirus issue? I'm going to tell you that later. Thanks again for coming. My name is Christine Dunning, and I am the host of A Solo Person's Guide to ADHD. If this episode is helpful, please check out my website. Please rate and review. I really could use that. Every time you hit a like button or give me some stars or whatever, it makes this available to more people. That's how the internet works. So I really could use that. This appears both on any podcast station and on YouTube. So if you like it, look at both. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming.